My ex's lie completely ruined my life. My parents believed her story and disowned me, cutting me out of their world. Now, after learning the truth, they want to reconcile. I never thought I'd share this, but recent events have pushed me to finally open up. I'm Ethan, 28 years old, and this all started 5 years ago. Growing up, I was the golden child in my family, the dependable, good kid. My parents, Robert and Karen, were proud of my academic success and my calm, reliable nature. I had a younger sister, Sophia, who was more rebellious and caused them far more stress than I ever did. Because of this dynamic, there was always an unspoken expectation that I'd be the one they could trust without question. During my sophomore year of college, I met Jessica. She was 22, and we were in the same psychology study group. She was lively and outgoing, the total opposite of me, an introvert. Jessica brought me out of my shell, encouraging me to try new things and meet new people. A few months after we met, we started dating, and for 2 years, it felt perfect. We even began planning for the future, looking at apartments near the tech company where I'd secured a job after graduation. My parents weren't thrilled about the idea of us living together before marriage, but they liked Jessica enough to warm up to it. It felt like everything was falling into place. Then came the day that shattered everything. I just finished a grueling final exam and was excited to celebrate with Jessica. But when I arrived at her apartment, I found her crying. At first, I thought something terrible had happened to her family, but the truth was far worse. Jessica admitted she'd been cheating on me with her co-worker, Ryan, for the past 3 months. I was completely blindsided. The Jessica I thought I knew would never do something like this. We argued for hours, going in circles about why she'd done it. I felt numb, unable to fully process what was happening. Finally, I told her I needed time to think and left. I went to stay with my best friend, Alex, who'd been my roommate during freshman year. Alex was furious on my behalf and told me to break up with Jessica immediately. But I was conflicted. 2 years of memories and future plans don't just disappear overnight. I spent a week on Alex's couch, barely eating or sleeping, trying to figure out what to do. In the end, I realized I couldn't trust Jessica anymore. Trust is the foundation of any relationship, and ours was shattered. I worked up the courage and went back to her apartment to officially end things. When I got there, Jessica was acting nervous. I thought it was because she knew what was coming, but I was wrong. The moment I mentioned breaking up, her entire demeanor shifted. She started yelling, accusing me of hitting her. I stood there stunned, unable to believe what I was hearing. Before I could even respond, she stormed out of the apartment, screaming that I'd abused her. What followed was a nightmare. The police showed up at my door, and before I knew it, I was being arrested and interrogated. Jessica had filed a report, claiming I'd physically abused her during our argument about her cheating. I was horrified, repeatedly insisting it wasn't true, but no one seemed to believe me. The worst part came when my parents arrived at the station. I thought they'd stand by me, that they'd know I'd never hurt anyone. But the looks they gave me said it all. My mom wouldn't even meet my eyes, and my dad's face was red with anger. They didn't believe me. The investigation dragged on for weeks, and my life unraveled. The university suspended me, and most of my friends distanced themselves, unwilling to associate with me. Only Alex stood by my side, offering his couch and his unwavering support. But my parents? They disowned me almost immediately. My dad said they couldn't have an abuser. For a son in that, I'd brought shame to the family. My mom just nodded in agreement. They changed the locks on the house and told me not to contact them again. Even Sophia, who tried to defend me, was silenced. My parents took away her phone and monitored her internet use to make sure she couldn't reach out to me. Eventually, the charges were dropped because there was no evidence. The police found inconsistencies in Jessica's story, but by then it was too late. My reputation had already been destroyed. When I tried to tell my parents I'd been cleared, they refused to listen. They said I must have gotten away with it, or that the police just couldn't prove it. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't convince them of my innocence. Even though the charges were dropped, the damage was done. I was allowed to return to the university, but the whispers and judgment followed me everywhere. People I once called friends crossed the street to avoid me. Professors who used to praise my work now treated me like a stranger. Even though I was cleared, the stain of the accusation stuck to me like a shadow. After months of trying to endure it, I made the hardest decision of my life. I transferred to a college across the country to finish my degree. Alex, my one true friend, helped me pack and even lent me money for a security deposit on a tiny studio apartment. I deleted my social media accounts, changed my phone number, and disappeared. I needed to start over somewhere no one knew me or my story. The next 2 years were brutal. I was completely alone in a new city, cut off from everyone I'd ever known except for Alex. I buried myself in my studies and worked part-time jobs to stay afloat. The nights were the hardest, when the loneliness and the bitterness of it all would hit me like a wave. But I pushed through. I had no other choice. Eventually, I graduated with a degree in computer science. Through a bit of luck and determination, I landed a job at a small tech startup. Slowly, I started to rebuild at work. I made a few casual acquaintances, though I hesitated to call anyone a true friend. The fear of being hurt or betrayed again was always there, lingering in the back of my mind. Then, about a year ago, I met Emma. She was a regular at the coffee shop. I visited every morning before work. She'd always sit at the same table with her laptop and a stack of medical textbooks. We started with small talk over coffee, which turned into longer conversations. Emma was kind, funny, and sharp-witted. For the first time in years, I found myself genuinely looking forward to seeing someone. But the idea of starting a relationship terrified me. How could I trust anyone after what Jessica did? And how would Emma react if she knew about my past? We became friends first, spending time together outside the coffee shop. Emma seemed to sense my hesitation and never pushed for more than I was ready to give. A few months into our friendship, I finally told her everything. What happened with Jessica, the false accusations, and my family cutting me off. To my surprise, Emma believed me without a moment's hesitation. She was furious on my behalf, angry at Jessica for lying and at my parents for abandoning me. Her support was overwhelming, like a light breaking through years of darkness. With Emma's encouragement, I started to open up more. After months of friendship, we began dating. It wasn't easy, trusting someone, again after being so deeply hurt, but Emma's patience and understanding made it possible. We've been together for 8 months now, and things are going well. But I still struggle with the scars left behind, trust issues, and the lingering pain of being abandoned by my family. I haven't spoken to my parents or extended family since the accusations. The only connection I've had is with Sophia. She managed to secretly contact me last year, and we've been slowly rebuilding our relationship. It's been tough because our parents still forbid her from talking to me. I'm careful not to put her in a bad position, but it's comforting to know I'm not completely alone in this. Then, a few weeks ago, everything changed. Sophia told me that Jessica had confessed. The guilt had finally caught up to her, and she admitted to lying about the abuse. She came clean to my parents, who were apparently shocked. But instead of apologizing or reaching out to me, they sent Sophia to test the waters about reconciliation. They want to reconnect now, but after everything, I'm not sure I'm ready to let them back in. Emma thinks I should at least hear them out, but I feel torn. Part of me wants to confront them, demand an apology for the pain they caused me. Another part just wants to move on with my new life and leave the past behind. After much thought and long talks with Emma, I decided to meet with my parents. But I made it clear to Sophia that this would be on my terms. I told her to arrange a meeting in a neutral place, a quiet cafe in my hometown. The days leading up to it were nerve-wracking. I barely slept, haunted by nightmares of the confrontation. Emma offered to come with me for support, but I told her this was something I needed to do alone. She understood. But we rehearsed potential scenarios together so I'd feel more in control. On the day of the meeting, I arrived early and chose a table near the exit. My heart was pounding as I sat there waiting, half convinced they wouldn't show up. But right on time, they walked in. They looked older and more tired than I remembered. My mom burst into tears the moment she saw me, while my dad stood stiffly behind her, looking awkward and uncomfortable. I didn't stand or offer hugs. Instead, I gestured for them to sit, determined to keep my composure. I opened the conversation by setting firm ground rules. I told them I was here to listen to what they had to say, but I wasn't promising forgiveness or reconciliation. They nodded, seemingly understanding the gravity of the situation. My mom was the first to speak. Her words tumbled out, clumsy and full of emotion. She apologized for not believing me, for abandoning me when I needed them most. She said they had been overwhelmed, terrified of the accusations, and the shame it brought to our family. My dad nodded along, occasionally adding his own words of regret. But as they spoke, memories of that horrible time came rushing back. I couldn't forget the disgust on their faces at the police station, or how quickly they turned their backs on me. Every excuse they gave felt like a slap in the face. When they finished, I asked the question that had been eating away at me for years. Why didn't you believe me? Their answer was as disappointing as I feared. They talked about societal pressure, about not wanting to be those parents who defended an abuser. They said Jessica had been so convincing, and they thought they'd raised me better. Each explanation stung more than the last. I couldn't hold back anymore. I told them exactly how their actions had ruined my life. I described the nights I spent sleeping on Alex's couch, too ashamed to tell anyone I had nowhere else to go. I told them about having to leave my university, my friends, and everything I'd worked for because they abandoned me. I talked about the loneliness, the humiliation, and the trust issues I still struggle with to this day. I made it clear that their decision had cost them a relationship with their son for 5 years, possibly forever. I told them about all the milestones they missed. My graduation, my first job, my promotion. I watched as the reality of what they'd thrown away finally seemed to sink in. They asked about my life now, hungry for any details about the son they abandoned. I gave them the bare minimum, deliberately keeping Emma and my job out of the conversation. I wasn't ready to let them back into my life, not even a little. As the meeting drew to a close, they asked if we could rebuild our relationship. I told them I needed time to process everything. I didn't promise anything, but I didn't say no either. The ball is in my court now, and I'm going to take all the time I need to decide what role, if any, I want them to have in my life. When I left the cafe, I felt emotionally drained but oddly relieved. I had said what I needed to say. Confronting them wasn't the cathartic experience I'd hoped for, but it was a step toward closure. When I got home, Emma was waiting with comfort food and a warm hug. She listened as I recounted everything, reassuring me that I'd handled it well. Later that night, Sophia called to check on me. She apologized for not standing up for me more back then. I told her I didn't blame her. She was young and under our parents' control. For now, I'm focused on processing my emotions and figuring out what I want. I've decided to start therapy to help me work through all the pain this situation has brought up. Emma has been incredibly supportive, and I know it's the right step forward. It's been a few months since that meeting, and after a lot of reflection, I've made my decision. I've realized that while my parents' apology might have been sincere, it didn't address the core issue, their complete lack of trust in me when I needed them the most. Therapy has been an eye-opener. My therapist helped me unpack the years of pain and confusion and see things more clearly. I realized that while forgiveness might be possible one day, reconciliation isn't something I need to heal. Their apology, as heartfelt as it seemed, felt more about easing their own guilt than truly acknowledging the damage they caused me. I also spent time reflecting on my childhood. Looking back, I noticed there had always been an undercurrent of conditional love. They were proud of me when I succeeded. But when I struggled or made mistakes, their support was often missing. What happened with Jessica didn't create these cracks in our relationship, it just exposed them. Eventually, I decided to write a letter to my parents, explaining my feelings and my decision. I told them that while I appreciated their apology, the damage done to our relationship wasn't something that could be repaired easily or maybe ever. I explained that I'd worked hard to rebuild my life without them, and I wasn't willing to jeopardize my mental health or stability by letting them back in right now. I also addressed Jessica's confession. I told them how deeply it hurt that they believed her over me, their own son, and that it took her admitting the truth for them to even consider. I might have been innocent all along. I made it clear that this betrayal of trust was the heart of the problem, not just their decision to disown me. Their response was mixed. My mom left me a tearful voicemail, begging me to reconsider and saying how much she missed me. My dad, on the other hand, sent a short, formal email saying he understood but was disappointed in my choice. Their reactions only solidified my belief that I'd made the right decision. Meanwhile, Sophia has been my rock through all of this. She's been supportive of my decision, even though she's sad about the situation. We've grown much closer in the past few months, talking regularly and even video chatting. She recently moved to my city for grad school, and having her nearby has been wonderful. We have dinner together every week, and she's even become good friends with Emma. It feels good to have at least one piece of my family back in my life, one that isn't tainted by betrayal. On a brighter note, Emma and I have taken a big step forward in our relationship. We've moved in together. It's been an adjustment, but a positive one. Living together has strengthened our bond and brought us closer. We're learning each other's quirks and building a real home together. Work has been going well too. I recently got promoted to lead developer on a new project. The added responsibility can be stressful, but it's rewarding to see my hard work pay off. I've also started volunteering at a local organization that supports victims of false accusations. Sharing my story and helping others in similar situations has been therapeutic in a way I never expected. As for Jessica, I've heard through Sophia that she moved away and is supposedly in therapy. I hope she gets the help she needs, but I have no desire to ever see or speak to her again. What she did caused irreparable harm, and while I'm working on letting go of my anger, I don't owe her forgiveness or reconciliation. For now, I'm focused on moving forward. I'm working hard to rebuild my trust in others and to heal from the past. It's a slow process, but I can feel myself getting stronger every day. It's been about a year since my last update, and I feel like I'm finally closing this chapter of my life. So much has changed, and for the first time in a long while, I feel hopeful about the future. The biggest news? Emma and I got engaged. I proposed during a weekend getaway in the mountains. We hiked to a beautiful overlook at sunset, and I got down on one knee, nearly dropping the ring because I was so nervous. Before I could even finish my question, she said yes. We're planning a small wedding for next spring, and the excitement of planning our future together has filled me with a kind of joy I didn't think I'd ever feel again. Emma has been my rock through everything. She's seen me at my lowest, stood by me, and supported me every step of the way. She never pushed me to heal faster than I was ready, and her unwavering belief in me has given me the strength to move forward. I can't wait to build a life with her. As for my family, things have settled into a new normal. I've stayed firm in my decision to keep them at arm's length. My parents occasionally send messages through Sophia, holiday greetings or birthday wishes, but I've asked her to limit the information she shares about me. It's not a perfect solution, but it's what I'm comfortable with for now. Sophia and I, on the other hand, have grown even closer. Since moving to my city for grad school, she's become a big part of my life again. We have weekly dinners, and she's even bonded with Emma. Having Sophia around has helped fill some of the void left by the loss of my relationship with our parents. Work has continued to go well. I've been promoted again and now lead my own team. The responsibility can be overwhelming at times, but it's incredibly rewarding to see my hard work pay off. I've also remained active in volunteering with the support group for victims of false accusations. A few months ago, I shared my story publicly at one of their events. It was terrifying to speak in front of a crowd, but the overwhelming positive response made it worth it. Knowing my experience could help others made me feel like all the pain wasn't entirely in vain. I recently received a letter from my parents. They told me they've been attending family therapy and asked if I'd be willing to join them for a session. I appreciated the gesture, but I'm not ready to take that step yet. In my reply, I explained that while I'm glad they're working on themselves, I'm not interested in family therapy at this time. Maybe someday, but not now. Emma and I have also started talking about building our own family one day. The thought excites me but also terrifies me. I can't help but worry about repeating the mistakes my parents made, about not being able to trust my own children. But Emma assures me that simply acknowledging those fears is the first step toward being a better parent. We're not rushing into anything, but it's nice to imagine a future together. Therapy has helped me work through many of my lingering trust issues and anxieties. I'm learning to open up to people again and not immediately assume the worst. It's still a work in progress, but I'm proud of how far I've come. Looking back on everything, I can finally say that I'm in a better place than I ever thought I'd be. The journey hasn't been easy, and there are still days when the past feels like a heavy weight, but I'm proud of the life I've rebuilt and the person I've become. To anyone going through something similar, please know that it does get better. It takes time, and the path isn't always straightforward, but you can come out the other side stronger. Surround yourself with people who believe in you, seek help when you need it, and don't be afraid to cut toxic people out of your life, even if they're family. For now, I'm focused on the future. With Emma by my side and the peace I've fought so hard to find, I'm ready to move forward, one step at a time.